As you know, my name is Braden and I'm a senior at Cadott High School. Some of you may know me as I'm originally from Eau Claire and attended South Middle School. I know there's some of you up there. I am honored to have the opportunity to stand up here and share my testimony with all of you. About a year ago, I shared my testimony for the first time with my youth group in Stanley. Shortly after, I attended Fields of Faith with my FCA group, and my amazing advisors encouraged me to stand up here this year to share my story with all of you. I was a little bit nervous, but after thinking about it for a while, I knew I wanted to take this chance. Like some of you, I grew up in a Christian family, going to church every Sunday, praying before meals, and going to youth group. As a kid, I always thought of it as stupid because I didn't understand it or know any better, but my parents forced me to go. I thought I lived a pretty good childhood, and like any other kid, I felt invincible. But it didn't take long for everything to come crashing down. When I was 10 years old, my parents started fighting, and I found out the news they were getting divorced. My dad ended up moving far away as he was going through a bad state of depression, so I never got to see him. And it felt like the only people I had left in my life to make me happy were my two older siblings. But only a month afterwards, my sister moved out to college, and my brother moved to Texas. I felt like I was all alone, and I was angry. I was angry at God. I thought to myself, if I'm a Christian, then why do bad things happen to me? My life should be perfect, shouldn't it? Is what I would always ask. So I stopped going to church, and I told myself I didn't need God and that I could live my own life. By the time I was 11, I was so depressed that every night I bawled myself to sleep. I had my mind made up that I was going to end my life. I looked in the mirror and saw a person with no purpose and nobody that cared about him. I had it all planned out on how I would do it, and when the time finally came, I felt a presence over my body. I no longer had the strength to follow through with it. At 11 years old, I was already in so much pain that I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't think about it. I think about it every day because depression is such a common thing nowadays, and it blows my mind to know that if I felt like that, then how many other teenagers, 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds, or even younger kids struggle with these exact same things. And if you do the research on it, numbers are not good, and they're getting progressively worse every year. Research says that 85% of people struggle with depression because of low self-esteem and the feeling of being alone. But in reality, you are never alone. Joshua 1:9 says, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. That's my favorite verse in the Bible, and it's so important because sometimes we get so caught up in the world, and our own life that we forget that He is always there for us. It took me a while to acknowledge this as well. From the time I was 11 all the way up through middle school, nothing really ever got better. I had my small group of friends, but overall I felt like an outsider. I wanted to be fun and try and fit in with all the groups of people, but instead, I stayed quiet. After COVID hit, I had a lot of time on my hands, so I started spending more time with my dad in Cadott, doing stuff I missed out at as a kid, like hunting, playing catch with him. When the talk about high school came up, I had a new opportunity to transfer away from my hometown and get a fresh start at a new school. It was a very tough decision, but I thought to myself, this would be the chance to change my personality and do whatever it takes to make myself popular. Yet again, something that was not a smart decision. It didn't take long for me to make myself known and make a couple of what I thought were friends. What I didn't acknowledge is that the things I was doing to make myself known were the same things that I hated and stood against when I went to Eau Claire. But instead of me being a victim, I was the instigator. My grades were getting worse, my attitude changed, and overall I was a mean person. And all of that for what? To become popular. And it didn't make a difference either. Because deep down, I still felt unfulfilled and alone. And I still wasn't going to church. That's the reality of life, though. No matter how hard you try and make a perfect image of yourself so that you can post on your Instagram to show everyone how great your life is, there's always a feeling of emptiness inside. Even Tom Brady, one of the greatest football players of all time, once said in a press conference that even though he was living out his dream, winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl, he still felt empty inside. My youth pastor always tells me that story. And it's true because the only true way to fulfill one's life is by growing a relationship with God. In between the summer, in my freshman and sophomore year, I got in a really bad bike accident. A car pulled out of a driveway while I was going down a big hill with no helmet on, causing me to swerve and lose control of my bike. I rolled down the hill and slid across the pavement to a stop. I can't remember anything from the accident. I can only piece together the story based on what my stepbrother saw. I had a massive bump on the back of my head that is still there today, and my body was black and blue. When I got to the hospital, the only thing that I could remember what I kept saying were the birthdays of each of my family members. Within half an hour, the news had spread to my family and friends who weren't with me, who then spread the news to their friends, and most importantly, to their churches. I had multiple tests done at the hospital on my brain and my memory. By the end of the night, I luckily found that all that I had was a major concussion. Everything else came back negative. All I can remember the doctor saying is that you're very lucky. The next morning, I woke up feeling surprisingly good considering what happened the night before, and all my memories were restored except for the day before. Even though I wasn't supposed to, I decided to check my phone. And when I turned it on, I had 37 new text messages from unknown numbers of people saying something along the lines of, "Braden, we're praying for you." I was in tears. I didn't know what to say. All these people who I didn't know, who I thought didn't care for me, praying for me. For the first time in a long time, I prayed to myself. And I said, "All right, God, I hear you." It only took 3 weeks from the accident and I was back to normal. And I could talk, my memory was restored. I started attending youth group more frequently than ever, not because I was forced, but because I wanted to. Because I wanted to learn everything. Now at the age of 17, when I look in the mirror, I no longer have to, I see my 11-year-old self, and instead of saying, "Look what you could have grown up to be," I get to say, "Look what you did grow up to be, and look what you will continue growing up to become." I'm still a sinner, and I may not be perfect, but my reflection is one in infinity. God made each and every one of us with a purpose. We may not look the same, but we all share one thing in common, and that one thing is that we are all children of God. Thank you.